Franchise location. There were 5 corporate locations before us, and starting out West Virginia, and then Colorado, Texas, Nevada, and Wisconsin. The 2 franchises are Tennessee and New York. Fortitude Ranch was founded by Colonel Drew Miller, U.S. Air Force, retired. He basically looked at the world, looked at the country, and he has a wife and daughter, and tried to figure out how he could protect his family. Unfortunately, 3 people isn't very good. So he started looking at survival communities, and he noticed that a lot of them collapse. There's no cohesive bond with them. So he realized that using the military would be the way to do it. So it's veteran-owned and veteran-run. I unfortunately am not former military. I am a mariner. I work aboard tugboats. I've done it for 25 years now. I work aboard ships, tugboats all over the world. Anyway, my wife and I, we don't have kids, so it's just 2 of us on 68 acres in upstate New York. Like I said, Chip said 2.5 hours north of here, and near Stamford, New York. Stamford with an M. And we have 68 acres, and I talked to Drew Miller and told him I wanted to join Fortitude Ranch, and he's like, well, you've got this beautiful homestead. Why don't you create your own Fortitude Ranch in the Northeast? And my first response was kind of funny because on their website they said they will never build a Fortitude Ranch in New York, California, Massachusetts, Delaware, Illinois. They listed all these states, and I said, why New York? He's like, because your location is perfect. It's like you're away from the cities and you're in a safe zone. No nukes are going to hit you. So he came to the property last April, toured, and he was really impressed with what my wife and I have built over the last 14 years now. So, better known, what Fortitude Ranch is in good times, it's a recreational community. People can come there. We don't have horses, but you can walk trails, ride ATVs, do things that you enjoy. In bad times, we revert to a survival community. Members only. Only those who have paid their dues and are current members can be there. No guests. If you bring somebody that's not a member, they're going to be sent away. And if you say, oh, I'm not moving in unless they come with me, you take your food, you take your guns, you take your stuff, you leave. Basically, that's that. On our property, hunting, fishing, hiking, ATVs, training. Every location has annual training, and because we're a franchise, we have the ability to go beyond what corporate demands. They demand 1 training a year. We would like to have a training a month, bring people together. I had a conversation with a gentleman last Saturday saying if a member is an attorney, they don't know, they basically show up, what do I do? Whereas if we have monthly meetings, people can come to the site, train together, get to know each other, and if there is an emergency, they can get together and we'll already be pre-made teams. They'll know each other. It'll be more of a bonding situation. Mention the numbers. My wife and I, we have land, we have supplies, we have guns. We've got the nearest neighbor is, 7 people live on a 1.5 mile road. But the thing is, if things get bad, the cities are going to collapse first, and then they're going to start marauding outward, and eventually they'll find us. So we need numbers, and that's an idea of Fortitude Ranch also. Have sufficient numbers, 6 people on guard at all times, 24/7. And every member is required to have a weapon. Recommend AR-15, shotgun, handgun. You don't have to have all 3 of them, but at least 2 of them. Shelter. Currently, actually positions, we offer 3 types of memberships. There's Spartan, Economy, and Luxury. Spartan is basically room enough for a bed. It's a small room, and you sleep there, and the rest of the time you're in common areas, outside, places like that. Economy is a larger room. Economy is probably 8 by 8, 7 by 8, something like that. Economy would be about a 10 by 10 room or so. Luxury would be similar to an economy, has an outside window, better furniture, better dressings. You can pretty much bring whatever you want there, store whatever you want there. That's your room for as long as your membership lasts. We have 5-year, 10-year, 15-year, and 25-year memberships. And beyond that, if you want an outside membership, you can get what's called lease a Fortitude Village lot, which is approximately an acre of land that you can do with what you will. You can put a tiny home there. If permitting allows, you can build a house, put a septic system in. You can do whatever you want on that acre. The rooms that I aforementioned would give you the permission to go to any Fortitude Ranch for up to 14 days a year. 14 days total. So you can go to Colorado for a week. You can go to Tennessee for a week. And if you have a Fortitude Village lot, you get the same 14 days, but at your home fort, which if you join it would be New York State, if you have the village lot, you basically have full-time privileges at that location. You can live there if you want. Beyond that, we also have RV memberships, which are similar to village lots. You don't have the ability to do anything, but you can park your RV there year-round for a fee. Let's see. We are currently in what's called Pioneer membership stages. We don't have the facilities for 50 members. To be fully operational, we need shelter, 12 months of food, and basically full-time staff for every member. So 50 members, 50 times 365 times 2,000, what's that, about 52 million calories? No, 35 million calories, I think. Anyways, a lot of food stored on site. Beyond that, members can bring their own food as well, and we recommend that. What our food storage is the bare minimum. Is anybody familiar with lifeboat bars? Basically, on ships, lifeboats, they have these little chewable canned or sugar cookies. They're about 3,000 calories per bar. And that's the food storage we have at our site. So we also have hogs, turkeys, chickens. We will be having sheep, goats, cows up the road. So a lot of our calories are on the hoof, so to speak. Water. Our location has multiple springs, one well. We will be adding 2 more wells to our site. We have a running creek, 1 pond. We're going to be building 2 more ponds. And we have more water than any other ranch nationwide. I mentioned security, that every member is required to have at minimum 2 to 3 guns. Medical. Our location doesn't have any doctors yet, but several other locations have doctors and nurses on staff that are members. So they bring all their expired medical supplies. They're not supposed to, but instead of throwing them in the garbage, they throw them in a garbage bag and bring them to the site. So we will have medical services as well. In terms of other needs, energy. We have 68 acres, about 40 of those acres are wooded. So primary heating for our location is wood. Beyond that, we have 2,000 gallons of propane on site. We have generators. We're planning on installing solar and batteries as well. In a collapse, most of that would be shut down, not the wood-burning stoves, but propane on a as-needed basis, solar, batteries, etc., charging tools, things that are required. We won't be able to have your TVs on, all that stuff. But if there's an EMP, solar flare, that's pretty much knocked off. We're knocked off the grid, even with all those backups. Sanitation. We have 1 septic system on site right now. We will be adding 2 more septic systems, but that's in good times. If 50 people show up or 100 people show up, 100 members, they'd overload the septic system pretty much within a month. So if there's an emergency, that's going to be on a minimal basis septic system use. Beyond that, we'll have bushes, latrines, slit trenches. Yes, there's going to be a lot of. That's all been designed. Drew Miller's looked at everything. Memberships. The lowest membership is Spartan. Spartan is about $3,000 down and about $1,000 a month. $1,000 a year per person. So if you have a family of 4, it might be $12,000 and then $4,000 a year. But that gives you 2 weeks, like I said, at any location, and
guaranteed place to go.
Guaranteed place. Well, who drives a car? Pretty much everybody, right? Required to have auto insurance. Probably have medical insurance. Might have life insurance. You have all these insurances, but nobody has SHTF insurance. What happens? Look at COVID. When COVID hit, the population of my town almost doubled because people were trying to get out of the cities. They're just moving upstate. And pretty quickly, everything was rented out. Everything was booked. The current COO of our company, Jeff Slovak, he recommended back in September that this can be an end of the world scenario, EMP, grid down, etc. But why not have it where members can come up if their house burns to the ground? They lose their job. They basically got to get, they don't, a house getting flooded, a hurricane. So, I mean, we're lucky of where we are, but what if electricity goes out for a week and you don't have a wood burning stove in your house? Come to Fortitude Ranch. It gives you an alternative.
And once you're a member, you can, if you want to, just live there.
Yeah,
correct?
Not with the Spartan, not with the Spartan economy or luxury, but with a village lot or with a RV membership, yes.
Okay.
I mean, there are monthly fees and daily fees for something like that. Well, not for the village lot. If you have a village lot, you can build a tiny house on your lot and you can live in it.
So then what's the limit? How long can a person that's been paying into this live there
If it's an emergency, it's on a per case basis. Nobody has done that yet. Initially, Colonel Miller said we're not going to do anything like that at corporate. But now that Jeff is a COO, he was the one who brought that suggestion up. Initially, Drew said, I don't like that idea, we're not going to do that at corporate. Well, now the COO makes the decisions and he wants to do that. Everybody faces emergencies at one time or another. Like I mentioned earlier, we have a travel trailer. We don't live in it. It's on our property, but it burned to the ground on Halloween. And if there were people living in it, if there were people renting it, we might have lost everything to a lawsuit. I mean, umbrella policies are critical. But people get into emergencies all the time. It might not be you, but it might be somebody you know.
So the ultimate fear we all have is the grid goes down, an EMP attacks, and everything gets fried. So I think that would be emergency.
That's one of the worst emergencies because although they've done tests on cars, the last test was done like 20 years ago for an EMP. Since 2000, cars have like 10 times as many electronics as they did. Funny thing, I have an 85 snowplow, 85 Blazer. It's a military Blazer. It looks all old-fashioned. One day I looked at the floorboard and there was a computer chip. What do you call it? Glow plug control card. In 1985, the military was already putting electronics in their cars, in their vehicles. So if there's an EMP, if there's any advance notice,
Well, I guess my question is if it was that level or that kind of an emergency, then whether you're Spartan or whatever other level of membership, would you be evicted from?
No, at that point it's full-time residency.
Okay.
So right now we literally have a 4,000 square foot barn that's being renovated. Right now it's an empty shell. There are no rooms. There's just space. And like the gentleman I gave a tour on Saturday said, hey, but it's dry, it's secure. If we need a place to go, we can go there. So, and I told him if there's not an immediate emergency, we see like something that's coming, I told him I'd max out, I have $50,000 in credit cards, I'd max out every card I could, buy all the lumber, all the plywood, all the drywall I could, and have it delivered to the site, because that way, as people arrive, we can be building rooms for them. One fear that Colonel Miller has is H5N1, a pandemic. And the bad part about a pandemic, everyone's contagious. So we need to quarantine. So initially, in the first days, as people start to arrive, they'll literally be sent to their rooms. People that arrive later will have to have tents outside. We'll have to have, we're planning on building what they're called glamping pads, like 12 by 12 plywood or platforms. And we put tents on them, military tents. And so our goal is, in good times, lease them out, rent them out to campers, hikers in the area. In bad times, those might be temporary housing for quarantine, or basically, if people get sick, if they get the flu, and they don't want to contaminate everybody else, they can go there as well. If there's an emergency, if there's any type of crisis, all fees stop. If the dollar collapses, if there's any type of, people aren't going to be working, banks are going to be closed, there's going to be no source of money. So at that point, you show up and there's no more fees. I mean, we have enough calories to supply each member with 1 year of food. So beyond that, I just emailed a member yesterday. If you have freeze-dried food, if you want to store additional food, bring it up to the ranch, store it there. If you can get up to 2 years, 3 years, whatever, one recommendation I heard is to have 3 years of food on hand, because the first year you're just going to be living off of that food, because you're probably not going to be going outside with all the marauding that's going to happen, whatever, if it's a major event. Year 2, you're going to start growing stuff. But what if your crops fail? What if there's a storm? What if everything you grow, what if your chickens eat all? So you have year 2. Year 3, hopefully you've learned all the mistakes in year 1 and year 2, and by year 3 you're actually growing food again. It could be.
Thank you.
The thing is, our technology, I mean, they say if an EMP hits, we're going to go back to the 1800s. In the 1800s, everybody knew how to farm. Everybody knew how to grow. The reality is, if we get hit by an EMP, solar flare, some type of huge event, we're going to probably be more like the 1500s or 1600s. They knew how to grow back then too, but it's only people like you who know how to do things. And that's the thing, people need to learn, and that's one of the things that I want to have monthly trainings on to grow food. I just want to touch on their question real quick. Medical care. And when I was down in Texas, Drew led me into a room, medical supplies everywhere. I don't remember seeing an AED. I think there was an AED there as well. But there are doctors on there. What his comment was, we have too many doctors. We have too many. The thing is, medical care, medications can probably not be available. So, have you heard of Jace Medical by any chance?
Yes.
Jace Medical.
Large supplies, right?
Jace Medical, you can get a prescription, and then you can go to them and they'll give you a year's supply of any medication. So I told my wife, get a year's supply of blood pressure medication, because we don't know. I mean, this cyber attack or whatever it was with AT&T, the pharmaceutical shut down for a couple. Well, I don't know if it's just a day, but what if it was a week? What if it was a month? What if you were at on your last week of medication? Have spares. Have minimum 3 months.
Is there going to be a library at the ranches?
If a member wants to start that, I'm absolutely open to it. I mean, I have a lot of books, but I don't have all the books. Yeah, what's going to happen in November? I mean, with Trump, it seems like every case against him is falling apart. And but it doesn't matter who wins, I think, in November. November's going to be, again, we don't know what's going to happen. So be prepared. We're also looking for investors. I mean, we have a $25,000, $50,000, $100,000 investment, and at $100,000 you could be on the board. You get a free membership, and $50,000 you get a discount, 50% discount. $25,000 you get 10% discount. And yeah, basically every cent that comes into Fortitude Ranch, New York, right now is all of it's going into infrastructure.
Now, you just started building this last fall, is that correct?
April, I got the go-ahead.
Okay.
And so in April, May, June, actually September, I was planning on having a grand opening in October. Nothing was built, but the barn, not to say I was a hoarder, but I had real estate in Rochester, New York. My wife had a house in Connecticut. I sold everything in Rochester. She sold her house in Connecticut. Everything from all those houses was put in the barn. So it was literally a 60 by 34 foot barn, 2 levels, stacked like 4 foot high everywhere. So I literally had to get rid of all of it. And I cringed because some of it was good stuff.
Once the initial down payment is made, can members pay their dues by the month?
Yes, it's quarterly payments and an annual restocking fee. So, but those payments don't start until we are fully operational, because there's no point in paying dues until you're actually up and running. Exactly.
When do you estimate that's going to happen?
I hope to get enough funding to actually start building. Right now, this barn was a dairy barn back turn of the century and coming up. So we've got to dig out the concrete in the floor, put plumbing in, and we can start building rooms on the ground floor. Once that's done, it should go pretty quick. We can work our way up, build the next floor, and then there'll be 19 rooms in this design. And 19 rooms, some rooms can hold 6 people, 8 people. Well, probably not 8 people, but if it's a big family. And once we actually had a major investor and a high income couple come to the property, and her response at seeing it was, nothing's happening here. There's no progress. We don't see anything, and that's a problem, because if we got the money, we could do the work faster. If If there is an emergency and everybody shows up at Fortitude Ranch, the first month or 2 months is going to be work your ass off, because we're going to be building walls, we're going to be closing off the roads, we're going to be planting the gardens. I mean, we'll have fields cleared with cover crops, but the thing is, it's going to be a massive workload for everybody on site. Back in 2010, when we purchased the property, my wife is a landscape architect, and she actually designed our barn to become an Airbnb, like with 5 very nice bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, master bath, even a sauna. And then the next level is going to be all open, kitchen area, dining room, game room. And when I told her about Fortitude Ranch, she actually went to Texas with me to meet Drew Miller, and she didn't like what she saw. She was upset because Drew Miller, we call the rooms luxury, but they're medium class rooms. They're not luxury, beautiful rooms. They are what's necessary to survive, and that's the whole point. She's like, if we're going to move ahead with Fortitude Ranch, I want my Airbnb too. So we're going to make quality rooms in the first 2 floors, and then it'll be bulk rooms above that. So these rooms are going to be more expensive. And so by the end of hopefully summer to fall of 2024, we do want to have the barn completed.
Is there a vetting process so that we wouldn't wake up one day to a neighbor who's bringing their furry in to use a litter box?
I wanted to ask if what the total membership was, and out of the total membership, only 2 interviews went south. Most people who are in the mind of conservatism, prepping, seeing the future, they have their eyes open. Right. They're not those kind of people, and that's the whole idea. This Fortitude Ranch is not a democracy. The ranch manager is the person who's in charge. He's former military. It's my property, but when I hire a ranch manager, his word is the final say. I mean, we might have disagreements. So if someone says, you know what, I want to do it my way, or we notice that somebody's starting to form a little clique that they're going to do things their way, it's our way or the highway. The gentleman who did the tour on Saturday asked about hydro.
We have a creek.
We want to build the dam. When we have rainstorms, there's like 3 or 4 weirs worth hundreds or thousands of gallons of running down the mountain. So in rain, we can do hydroelectric. The thing is, it's just like solar or wind. If it's cloudy or nighttime, you're not going to get solar. If there's no wind, we're not going to get wind.
Well, it's going to a battery, charge the battery bank.
Exactly. In good times, you charge everything up. The way I designed my home system, we have solar, we have batteries, and we have a generator. When the solar is out, it charges the batteries. If we have a week of shade, it's going to kill the battery. So we run the generator to charge the batteries and run the house. When the batteries are charged, you turn the generator off so you save fuel, and hopefully that'll last until the sun.
Run off propane?
Propane, yes. And like I said, we have 2,000 gallons. We have 2,000 gallon tanks, 80% maximum. So we have 1,600 gallons of propane.
Work assignments. Is there any discussion of how something like that would happen?
First assignment is going to be guard duty. We're going to put guards at both ends of the, maybe not both ends of the road, but both ends of the property. They'll have a list with all the members. And the thing is, the really nice thing about Fortitude Ranch is I used to travel for my job. I traveled to Texas all the time because I worked in the Gulf of Mexico. If I was in the Gulf of Mexico and an EMP hit, I'm not getting back to New York for 6 months, for 3 months, something, especially if it's bad weather. I can go to the Fortitude Ranch in Texas, walk up there, give them my name, give them my password, and I can stay at that Fortitude Ranch for the duration of the emergency or until I have a means of getting home. That's good for all 7 locations. So if you travel, I mean, some people I talk to, they have college students who are going out of state. Well, if they have a membership, they can go to any ranch in an emergency. So we do have connection. We do have ham radios at every location. New York doesn't have a ham radio there yet, but we will maintain contact. So if somebody's kid is in Texas or in Tennessee or wherever, they can go through the ham radio network and say, we have your kid at this location. I mean, how much stress relief will that be to know your kid's okay? So.
Mm-hmm. What kind of plan or what would you do, say like the law comes or the military comes or like Oakland decides to
The blue helmets converge.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. We do coordinate with the local sheriff to let him know we do have a retreat here. There are weapons here where they're all Second Amendment, New York State legal weapons, all this stuff. So we want the sheriff, we want the local government on board. If Hochul or something, state police show up, it gets, basically, it's a private club though. They don't have,
Like
it's,
gun club, right?
we got to be careful with that. A sports club, yes. I mean, look at what happened when COVID. They were shutting all these restaurants, bars. They shut everything down. But the rich, they had their private clubs. So as long as you walked in, no masks, no nothing, because it was a private club without permission to come in. And I mean, if they come in with a tank or state police shows up with the SWAT team, yeah, we don't want to go in that direction. So yeah, we are not a militia.
So,
We are.
question, how is your relationship with the county sheriff?
Well, I was talking earlier about that. I was part of Schoharie County. We live on the border between two counties, and I transferred my gun permit, everything to Schoharie County when we moved there. Everything was good until COVID. I would go buy a gun, go to the sheriff, show him the receipt. They do my permit. I'd go back and pick up my gun. Well, when COVID happened, the judge retired. It took 3 months. I still didn't get my gun. So I changed address. My legal address was my barn for the first 10 years. I moved the legal address to my house in Delaware County. Now the county sheriff give me coupons. I have 5 coupons in my house. I walk into a gun store. I buy a gun. They hand me the gun. Or I hand them the coupon. They fill it out. They keep half of it. They hand me the other half. I take my gun. I go home. I now have a gun that's not on my permit. I have 1 week to send that coupon to the sheriff. The sheriff will update and print a new permit card for me and send it to my house. So I can literally go to a gun store today and pick up 5 guns.
So which sheriff would have jurisdiction over our?
That's questionable. That's why I want to connect with the Delaware County Sheriff. There's already a corrections officer in Delaware County who already asked about membership at our ranch. So we do have an in. I haven't been in touch with him for a few months. But hopefully things expand.
That's important.
Another thing is FFL. We can't have Class 3 suppressors. All those good toys are illegal in New York State. But if we happen to have a local FFL who's a member who just happens to sell those types of weapons to the sheriff, we can have a storage facility that holds those until the sheriff is ready for them.
Well, we had this conversation with our sheriff last year, exactly 1 year ago, that if an emergency situation were to hit, he would not have to go to the legislature for authority to deputize.
Okay, and at that point, everything is legal. Ideally, we'll already have some sheriff deputies as members, so they can be part of and they can have their secure storage with or outside of the common storage. I mean, members can store, and I mean, when I was in Texas, it was nice. I literally stayed in a member's room, and you walk in, there's ammo, there's weapons, there's suppressed weapons there, there's I think there were burst mode, there wasn't full auto, but it was nice. In Texas, they literally have everything just sitting out. In New York, everything has to be secured, unless you're carrying it. I've watched several of Drew Miller's, if you go to YouTube, you can type in Fortitude Ranch, and there's several videos like that. And Drew talks about guard duty. It's like a lot of times you'll be at a guard check, but you may be making rounds. Well, if you're 80 years old, invalid, you can barely walk, but the thing is, you can hear. You might be put in a guard's nest with somebody else, and that person is just in that spot and perusing, listening, doing whatever they can do. There's always going to be a job for somebody. I mean, they talk about the kids. What are kids going to do? Well, we've got a lot of animals to be watched. It's like kids are great with chickens and watching the animals and the livestock guardian dogs. So everybody can be a member and everybody can do a job. Well, thank you for your time. I've enjoyed this a lot. Thank you.